Hello to all my guys, gals, and non-binary pals. It is Wick back with another Wicked Weekly Windup. We are now finally at episode 20, and we are at last in, the 20s. Like, we're moving right along here, folks. And as you can see by the title of this video, this is just going to be kind of a Fiyero analysis type thing, just a few things I've always wanted to say about the character, both book and musical, and subsequently what I'm hoping to see in the film. But again, viewers, please let me know if you have any ideas or requests for future videos, or if there's even a different way you'd want me to do these videos, because I know in a past character analysis I mentioned whether or not people would want me to make like supplementary PowerPoints, because visually it's easier to follow, but again, if you're a podcast type person, you're not looking at the screen anyways. So that's why this one's just face to face. Oh, and also I am planning on doing like a Discord competition type thing in the month of November, just to kind of amp people up further for the release of the Wicked movie, and I'll gladly buy the winner of it Nitro, but I need to flesh out the rules a little bit. But just to let any viewers out there who are interested know, yeah, please join my server. I'm gonna try to do a competition style thing in November, and again, winners get Nitro. I know it's not the biggest thing in the world, but it was something kind of cool to do. Oh yeah, and the my idea for doing like a podcast, like a proper podcast style episode where I have fans talk about what they are most excited to see. If anyone is interested in doing that, also feel free to reach out to me. I'll put my email and all that jazz in the description below. Uh, and next week, one last announcement. October 11th is National Coming Out Day, and October month is Gay History Month. So I will definitely be doing something Gelfie related next week. It's just because National Coming Out Day is technically closer to next week than this week. And also, I've been putting off this analysis video for so long. I need to get it done because I have two more I want to do before the movie comes out, on top of a few other ideas sprinkled in there, on top of whatever you guys might have. So I really just need to get more disciplined. And on that note, let us just launch right into my kind of spiel about the analysis, Fiyero analysis. Away to Oz we go. All right. So as we all know, oh, and I have my Defying Gravity shirt. As we all know in the musical, because I'll start there. I know the book came first, but I do feel like more people probably are familiar with the musical. In my opinions, and I'm so sorry to any Fiyero fans out there, but admittedly, in my first watch through, I wasn't his biggest fan. I was like, man, this is literally just a male Glinda. Like, think about it. He and Glinda both started off rich and privileged and pretty and popular and prissy and quite rude to our resident green-skinned girl here. And both of them, though, did, begin to soften up to her. They both learned the lesson of, oh, true beauty is what's within. And they both even wound up falling in love with her. Because, yes, Glinda fell in love with her. You cannot change my mind on that. That just, in my opinion, in the musical, Glinda and Fiyero's stories were so similar that I was like, well, what literally is the point of this character except to make some weird heterosexual love triangle that didn't even need to be here? Now, that's not how my opinion remains to this day. I have since read enough Fiyero analyses from fans that have really changed my mind about him. So, really, thank you guys. Like, it's truly the fans are what make a fandom work. We see the beauty in each other's characters. And if you're on my end of things, yeah, don't be a jerk if you don't like a character. Actually, be curious and go read why people like a character. You might wind up liking them too, because what people were kind of pointing out, what I've begun to see is, even though, yes, in many ways he was very much like a, we'll say, Glinda light, he sort of is meant to act like an in-between of Elphaba and Glinda, whereas if we see Elphaba and Glinda as like the two extremes of the spectrum, where one's the one that ran away, went rebel, and went to fight the system, whereas the other finished college and literally went to work for the government. Even though Fiyero began more towards Glinda's path, becoming essentially the chief of police, unlike Glinda, he does make a quicker and slightly more successful attempt to join the animal cause, as it were. Because even in the book, for example, even though he never joined Elphaba in her work, he does get way closer to her doing that type of work than Glinda ever did. So I'd seen some people saying that he's essentially meant to act as not just like this fluid middle between the two girls, but maybe something a little more audience surrogate almost, because he's more, even though we'll see ourselves in all the characters in a weird way, he's supposed to be us in terms of morality. Like, people are gonna flip flop, but maybe not as extremely as Elphaba and Glinda. And I actually thought that was a interesting perspective. And somebody else, at least, who mentioned that I saw a post once that Fiyero might be dealing with depression, and that's some of the reason he's got that kind of I don't even care what goes on anymore attitude. I'm like, dude, that's a really good analysis. It made me enjoy the character a lot more, because as someone who's also had depression, I kind of relate to that. I'm like, oh, being able to see Fiyero through that lens did make me like the character more. So That's what I mean. You never know. I think a lot of these, because that's what I hope to see in the movie in relation to musical Fiyero. Like, not necessarily that I need them to canonize his depression, but it would be cooler if it was more than just mean boy to love interest. Because even actually, I think that's a lot of complaints that people had it with the musical, not just the Gelfie stands like moi. Quite truly, it felt like his shift was even quicker than Glinda's, because at least Glinda had the kind of reckoning at the Ozdust, and she's like, oh, Elphaba just pretends to care, pretends to not care, but she actually does. Like, you can literally see Glinda feel guilty for what she's done, and then she goes up and apologizes to Elphaba, dances with her, they're great. Fiyero just watches her run up to a lion cub, and then he decides to run after her. Now, that's cool. I do appreciate that he had his own moment, but it definitely, time-wise, felt much shorter, like, more condensed of a scene, which, again, I get might be a pacing issue. You can't make anything a million hours long. But I am hoping in the movie adaptation to see more character development of Fiyero over time, so that way I don't feel like he just went from the bully boy Glinda 2.0 to the perfect Prince Charming love interest. And I'm like, again, Glinda could have filled that role. She would have been Princess Charming, but come on. But now let me switch over to a little bit about book Fiyero, because all of the wicked readers out there, because I'm sure it's a lot of you, but I know there are some fans out there who have only seen the play, or maybe have only read one book or the other. Though granted, most people have at least read the first one. But anyways, to all you book readers out there, you know Fiyero was quite different across all fronts. Like appearance-wise, he had dark skin and blue diamond tattoos. That was not all in the play and will not be in the movie, unfortunately. And personality-wise, even, he wasn't at all. He was more like Bach or Elphaba in the book. Like, y'all remember his first introduction to the class? He nearly got impaled by some antlers, and they even mentioned, oh, this poor transfer student from out in the western plains. What an intro to shiz. Because Averick was more like the musical fear of the dancing through life. Like, they basically combined the two characters. But, and weird, like, I don't necessarily mind that, but I think to me that was what gave it another dimension of Fiyero just male Glinda. Like, they even copied Averick's personality, which is the rich, spoiled socialite, which is also Glinda's personality. Whereas at least with Book Fiyero, even if it would have made the third character to be the kind of shy, awkward, dorky, nerd, weirdo, because that's Elphaba and Bach, and maybe to a lesser extent Nessa, there was in some ways more potential for parallels, because not only did Fiyero understand what it felt like to be an outcast, but he even had a weird skin color. Like in the book, I'm pretty sure Averick, the a-hole, describes Fiyero's skin color as shit colored. Like, dude. And not only that, but both Fiyero and Elphaba were kind of royalty in a way, because, you know, she was in line to be the eminent Throp of Munchkinland, and Fiyero was the Vinkus Prince. Because, I mean, that was true in both iterations. But in many ways, I think they could have, not that they didn't do it right, where I'm like, Greg, you should have rewritten your own book. But in a weird way, there was a lot of potential for some cute Elphaba Fiyero that maybe would have been more reminiscent of Elphaba Bach if there had been more time spent on Elphaba and Fiyero during Shiz with book Fiyero's personality. I know, obviously, they're not going to do that for the movie, so I don't really care about that. Averick Fiyero is fine. I've made my peace with that years ago. But it's just because even though when I first read the Wicked book, I wasn't a huge fan of the affair, because that stuff kind of rubs me the wrong way. I don't know. Looking back, I do have to admit it was very bittersweetly and well written, because, Fiyero, as a kid, I was a little bit like, dude, what a jerk. He's got a family at home, and he's out here just canoodling with Elphaba. But I get now, as someone slightly older, I'm like, man, dude didn't really get a choice in his life. He was in an arranged marriage. And I'm not saying that makes him right to go back on his duties and essentially punish his 7 wives and 3 children. But I kind of get why the dude felt a little trapped. And so Elphaba probably symbolized to him freedom and adventure, like life. And subsequently, what I always did like on Elphaba's end is I think that, funnily enough, he reminded her of the opposite. Not where I'm like, oh, he was Elphaba's, like, symbolism for how she wanted to be a stay-at-home wife and mother, but, like, that she wanted a partner and some stability. Because even though she enjoyed her animal rights work for what it wasn't like it was a fun job to have. Because that's why she had the affair with Fiyero. She was lonely. She missed Glinda. She missed Shiz. She missed her family and friends and camaraderie. She was living alone in a crummy apartment in a dingy part of the city. So I like how the two essentially were able to represent to each other something they really needed, and that's what made it like an unhealthy but beautiful relationship. Because I mean unhealthy in terms of the affair, not that they were like unhealthy for each other as people. But again, because they symbolize for each other, this kind of forbidden, like, oh, you're my peace, and oh, you're my, excitement. It was actually really well written, even though, again, as a kid, I was a little like, stop cheating. And honestly, I sometimes wonder what Greg might have done with the Scarecrow and or Fiyero if the musical hadn't crossed the two and confirmed that Fiyero is the Scarecrow who ran away from Oz with Elphaba. Because in the book two of Wicked, written by Greg, he does have the Scarecrow like sail away at Oz, and I'm like, I wonder if you did that only because of the Fiyero thing at the end of the musical. Because I really would have been interested to see what he might have done with the character. Because I know, like, for example, I know the Tin Man did never really get heard from again, but Burr got a whole bunch of stuff. He got a whole book. But anyways, I think that kind of wraps it up for my analysis of Mr. Tiggelar. I know it's sort of jumbled all over the place. It's just kind of listening to me talk about various points of the characters. But, I figured something nice for you to do if you're driving to work or doing chores around the house and bored. You can listen to me and Elfie ramble. Well, mostly me, because that would actually be if Glinda and Elphaba had a podcast together. It would be mostly Glinda rambling with a little bit of Elphaba's snarky commentary. They would be the funniest lines of the podcast, but they'd be few and far between uh, against Galinda's rambling. But yes, I do hope to see everyone back for a Wicked Weekly Wind-Up 21, which will either be another character analysis or, depending on my lack of discipline, maybe something else. But if anyone, oh, again though, if anyone does have any requests, those will always take precedent over anything I have planned. So please, I do hope to hear from somebody, anybody, even if it's just to leave a like to let me know that you enjoyed the video. But for now, I know it was a sudden ending, but that's all I had for you. So it's time for us to leave Oz again. But we'll be back next week. Bye. Say bye, Elfie.